Hey, shalom, Mike.
Shalom, shalom, and Hak Sameach.
Yes, it's that season. It's upon us, huh?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is. Starting Yom Teruah or Rosh Hashanah, so many different names
yeah,
for
the
this
Feast of
feast.
Trumpets and
Yep, Feast of
uh,
Trumpets.
Jewish New Year. It's
Yep,
all together. So
all together. All
yeah,
together.
it's an exciting
Well,
time of year. It's my favorite holy day. I love this day, and I can't wait till it fulfills, so I can get rid of this mortal body and get a new one. Because
oh
I'm
man.
getting old, and I got wrinkles, and I got back pain and hip pain. I'm ready for that new body.
Man, I'm just ready for a world of peace, a world where we could trust one another and don't have
Yeah,
to worry about people deceiving us or backstabbing us and everybody looking out for one another.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we were listening to the Charlie Kirk memorial today. It was in Arizona, and it fits right into our topic for today.
Yeah.
And just to see like 100,000 people there, and I feel this revival is about to come upon us. But I pray that it really does become a tsunami of new believers and the ones that are actually seeking Torah. So I hope that people will share this message with their friends and family, and it'll reach many people.
Yes, yes. And for those of y'all wondering, you know what Jeff said, this is pre-recorded because the feast is upon us, and both of us are actually going to be at services for Yom Teruah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do hope, I hope that this does stir up a revival. It was a very powerful message that was done today. Well, folks, welcome to the show. My name is Mike Robillard, and along with me is Jeff Clark.
Yeah,
This
sure.
this is the 613 lifestyle.
Mhm.
Um, we are on episode 6, and we are
Wow.
cruising along. Cruising along here. Last week we went over dominion and how that commandment really reveals that we have the tools to succeed in life.
Oh, amen. Hey, we got a lot of good comments and replies, and a lot of views on that episode, so it's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, we do. We did get some. Yeah, it seems like we're growing. Like every week, it seems like more and more people are coming in.
Right.
So definitely, folks, definitely subscribe to the show. It doesn't matter whether you're watching this from the Daily Torah on YouTube or Modern Torah on YouTube. The more people that are aware of this message and what we are doing, the better it'll be for people to get access and spread the word out.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. We got a lot to go cover today, especially with the information we've gotten recently. So this episode 6, we are going to be going over command number 3. All right, that command is to marry. All right. Um, Before we jump into this, I did want to touch on something that someone had mentioned in the last week while we were recording.
Hmm.
This one individual has said, no one can keep the 613, you know, and
I hear
and I,
that all the time. Yeah.
yeah, and you want to know something? For a long
People
time,
can't even keep the 10.
yeah, but I at first, when I was a young Messianic believer, I would be first to be like, you're wrong, and just
Mm.
combat and fight against it, and debate, you know. But now that I'm older, a little bit wiser, I've been doing this for some change now, about 18 years. I've come to realize that depending on where the person is coming from, when they say that the 613 cannot be kept, they can be either right or they can be wrong.
Well, they don't apply to them. I mean, the 613 don't apply to everybody. So,
Well, that's the point exactly. So if you hear someone saying you can't keep the 116 commands, which we've already explained that that's just a arbitrary number, it's not a literal number, but the concept is nobody can keep all the commands of God. Okay, if you're looking at it from a practical standpoint, then it is 100% correct, because there's commands for Levites, there's commands for women, there's
that's right.
commands for men, there's commands for kings, there's commands for the land. So when you look at it from that point of view, yeah, we could all agree that, yeah, not every command fits. I'm not a woman. So commands pertaining to women have nothing to do with me. I'm
Right.
not a farmer, so anything that involves farming has nothing to do with me. And even if I was a farmer, I'm not in the land.
Right.
So
But
that's
all of these have spiritual implications that
exactly.
apply to us, that we
Yes,
can learn from, and that we can use in our daily walk. They're not excuses to go and sin that you say, oh, well, we
exactly.
can't keep it, so we're just going to continue living a sinful life. No, you
No.
use these to be able to walk in holiness before your Lord and God, because you're going to, Yom Teruah is the day of judgment. I mean, it's coming. Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, and you're going to stand before the King, and He's going to ask you, well, are you going to hear the words, well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of your Lord? Or are you going to be cast aside into the, with the chaff and to the lake of fire? And people who
Right.
say they have no sin, but maybe they should go and read the, First John, because whoever says they don't have any sin is a liar. So
Exactly.
we all have sin in ourselves, and we all need to learn, and we need to grow, and we need to apply these holy principles into our lives. We can't play church anymore. We can't make excuses to go do what we want to do. No, it's time that we put on our big boy pants and grow up and learn how to apply and to live a godly life, a holy life, as Yeshua lived, and follow Him as best that we can.
Exactly. And like I said before, if I'm not a farmer, those commands don't apply to me. However, as people, as citizens of the kingdom, I still need to know those commands anyway.
Right? There's
Because
protocol. There's protocol
exactly,
of the kingdom.
exactly. I still need to know the protocols of the kingdom. I'm not a woman, but I still need to know those commands so that I can be observant and be aware of sin around me.
Right.
you know Now that's the one part, that's the first part. Now, for the most part, unfortunately, people that say, oh, you can't keep the commands of God, they're coming at it from a standpoint of it's impossible to do.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
now let me tell you how ridiculous that point of view is. All right, I'm a father, I got 5 kids, right? My oldest is 31, he's a manager at a Papa John's. I got a 27-year-old, a 21-year-old, 18-year-old, 15-year-old. Now, let's say I go out and I buy them round trip tickets to Israel, right? And I send them all and I say, look, all right, I go to my kids and I say, look, I need all of y'all to go to Israel. And within a year, I need you to bring peace. I
Yeah.
need all of the Muslims to love the Jews, all the Jews to love the Muslims. Hamas puts away all of their troubles. Hezbollah puts away all of their troubles. Israel and Iran become perfect friends. Okay? Now, of course, y'all hearing me say this, y'all are thinking, well, that's ridiculous. Those kids are going to get themselves killed, right? We all know realistically, if I were to do that, right? If I were to do that, and my kids go over there, chances are they're just going to go there and just, probably hide or blend in or try to survive the best they can. If they took my words seriously, right? Chances are they would end up being arrested or held captive. Worst case scenario, and even possibility, they'll get themselves killed.
Right.
Right? Now, let's say they survive a year and they come back, right? And of course, there is no peace in the Middle East. And I am livid. I am just angry with them. And I'm like, I can't believe you didn't do what I commanded you to do. who would not look at me as if I was a crazy parent?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So this is how a lot of people that say you can't keep the commands, this is how they're saying that our Heavenly Father is.
Yeah.
That He is giving people commands that they cannot keep. And then He's going to punish us and get angry for commands that we cannot keep.
The angry Old Testament God. Yeah.
That is not, first off, there is no love in that. There is no wisdom. There is no righteousness.
He would not tell us to do something that we couldn't do.
And I'm going to tell you, as we go through this series, periodically, I'm going to ask, is there anything so far that we've covered that's impossible to keep?
Right.
Because the people that have this mentality are brainwashed and are just taught it, and they're just regurgitating. And none of them, I could guarantee you that none of them truly know Torah. None of them truly know the commandments. And if we were to dig deep and ask them, well, what command is impossible to keep? I guarantee you that they wouldn't be able to answer.
Yeah.
So no.
The bottom line is they don't want to keep it. They want to live in rebellion to God, because that's the spirit of the anti-God. So
exactly. And it's ridiculous. If you can't say that God is the source of love, God is the source of wisdom, God is the source of righteousness, but then at the same time say that He's going to punish us for unfair commands that we cannot keep.
Right. So Yeshua said, if you love me, keep my commands. Or which commands is He talking about? Just the ones that He talked about when He was on earth? No, He's talking about the ones He wrote in the Torah. That's the only thing that's the only thing they were walking in during His time on earth. The New Testament wasn't written for, decades later, parts of it, and hundreds of years later before it was became part of the scriptures and the Bible. So it's ridiculous to think that, just Jesus said we have to keep just these commands that He talked about. Well, He talked about them all and He kept them all.
Yeah. And there is no new commandments for New Testament Christians, as some people say. Yes. Because every commandment that Yeshua gave
actually made them harder, right, Mike? I mean, we talked about this.
Exactly.
If your eye lusts for another woman, you've already committed adultery. You haven't even done the act. So He's already elevated into a spiritual plane that is much harder to keep than just the letter of the law.
Exactly, which has always been the goal of the commandments, is to change us spiritually. It's not just about the literal commands, the actual words, the mechanics of the commandments. Anyone could do those. The real work for us is allowing those words to change us internally and let those commands be a part of who we are. That's what Yeshua was demonstrating. That's what He was showing us and teaching.
Right.
So
we better get into the third command or we're going to run out of time.
Oh yeah, we gotta jump into this. But this is something, and I'm pretty sure we're going to bring it up again, because people have this crazy fallacy that you can't keep all the commands. And
I know.
All right, so let's dive right on in. All right. So our third commandment today comes from Genesis 2:24, and it is the command to marry. And the verse reads, "This is why a man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife, and they become one flesh." Okay? This is a positive command, something to do, right? This command is obviously about loving people. A man loving a wife loving loving a husband. This is all a loving people command. And this is an unconditional command, meaning that this is for all humanity, all of Israel, but all humanity. Anyone could do this. All right. Now, in this commandment, there's actually 3 key words. Okay. The first key word, "and shall cleave," come from the Hebrew word davak, right? Which means to cling, to stick, stay close, cleave, keep close, stick with, follow closely. I really, I don't know if anybody else watched the funeral service for Charlie Kirk, but I thought it was beautiful what Erica Kirk said about how he often asked her, what can I do to serve you better?
That's right.
That is something that I think most marriages are missing, to the clinging to one another aspect of it, and that's why I think that there's a lot of divorces today, because people today, most people get married because of emotions, and they don't know to vet one another. They don't know to understand one another and be like, okay, this is what he's like. This is what he likes, what he doesn't like. This is his goals. And folks, this is something that I think we all need to get to, because marriages for thousands of years really had nothing to do with love. A lot of times marriages were set together, out of a contract.
Right. Arranged marriages.
Arranged marriages. This whole idea that people gotta get married for love. Honestly, for mankind, that's a new concept. That's something that's really been new. But for thousands of years, there's been more arranged marriages than anything else that have lasted forever, because the emotions was out of it. They knew how to cling together.
Mm-hmm.
What most people don't realize, and don't get me wrong, all of us are human. We all get the feeling of love. I'm married. Jeff is married. We all get that feeling of love. But as you get older, you realize that feeling of love is fleeting. It's here one minute, gone.
It goes to another stage, I think.
Yeah.
They say like the honeymoon period wears off, but the key to a strong marriage is to study each other, understand, and to grow, and to learn how to appreciate each other, and not trying to change the other person, but appreciate the gifts and the talents that God has given each one of us to be one, which is the second word, right? One.
Yeah.
When you talk about being one, they should become one flesh. That word "one" comes from echad, and it means one, first, another, other. Any, and but basically it means that you are one. You are joined together. The two shall become one. Just like you have one family, you have a husband, wife, they're one flesh. And right, and that word flesh, Mike, what, maybe you want to take that one, but the word flesh comes from what Hebrew word? Bazar.
Basar.
Basar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to learn to appreciate each other, that we're one unit now. As husbands and wives, you're one unit, but you have different roles, and you have to learn to know and appreciate each other's role and be supportive of each other.
Yes. These three key words, really, when you think about it, and don't get me wrong, I mean, like I said, we're all human. We all get that love feeling, but when you look at these three key words, basar, davak, which means, to cleave,
Mm-hmm.
echad, which is one, basar, which is flesh, cleaving together, becoming one flesh. That is a choice,
Right.
and, people have.
And love is a choice. It's not a feeling. So it can be a feeling, but to love somebody is a choice.
That's the point I was about to make. There has been studies where they've taken couples, right, where they'll say they love each other every day, all day long, right, but they don't do anything, and then they'll take other couples that never say the words "I love you," but do the acts of love.
Yeah, it reminds me of like Fiddler on the Roof, where
exactly.
You love me. After all these years, I've done this, and this. Do I love you? Oh, yes, I love you. It's like,
because here's the thing: love is the actions.
Yeah.
I can say I love my wife all day long, but if I'm out going to clubs every night, dancing with other women, you know,
Right.
doing all kinds of craziness, is she going to feel loved? Because
Right.
I know my wife, because I know who she is, my goal as a husband is to protect her. My goal is to lead. And so I show her my love by being, I work, I come, I'm home, I make sure I spend time with the family. I make sure that I am doing things that don't make her feel insecure.
Mm-hmm.
That is love.
Yeah, I like what Erica said. She said when Charlie comes home from a trip, they write each other notes. He writes her a note like every Saturday, and they talk on the phone. But she said that when he comes home, her job is to make when he comes home the home like a sanctuary, that he can rest, feel welcome, feel loved, and can rest and be at peace. And so I thought that was very moving and a very great expression of her love for Charlie, and
Yeah.
she really outpoured that and showed that.
And it's action based, and not everybody's the same. There was a book long time ago in the 90s called The Five Love Languages,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which I thought was an excellent book, pretty good book. If you're having problems with your spouse, definitely I encourage you to read that. And if both y'all can read it together, do so. Because she obviously, Erica was definitely meeting Charlie's love language,
Yeah,
and he was clearly meeting her love language.
yeah, they were a good example, and it's good. But I like this commandment, and some people will say, well, what about Paul? What does he say about if you can be like me and remain unmarried and serve the Lord and do the mission? We need to discuss that a little bit, because this ties into what we talked about last week with the commandment to be fruitful and multiply from Genesis 1 verses 27 and 28. And that commandment sets the stage for this commandment, showing marriage as part of God's design for humanity, because
Yeah.
we can't populate and be fruitful and multiply if we're not married and producing children. And
Yes.
of course the evil one's doing everything he can to confuse everyone. And we read about, we read the Bernard Shah last week, the Shabbat in Romans 1, and it's talking about becoming a debased mind, and men burning for men, women for women, and having all those lies from the enemy. But here God is saying that to be fruitful and to multiply, you can only do it one way, and
Yeah.
that's with a
Yeah.
husband and wife procreating and having children.
Yes. And we touched on that when we talked about the commandment,
Mm-hmm.
the first commandment about being fruitful and multiply. That command is a general command, because the point that you brought up, which is a good point, Paul never married, and he promoted the life of celibacy. But
Right.
what this command actually does is it defines, if you are getting married, it defines what a marriage is. It's
Right.
between a man and a woman.
I think for the most part, God wants us to procreate, even if we're pastors and leaders or Messianic rabbis. But there are instances where it's beneficial that God selects certain people to go out and do his will and his work in some capacity,
Mhm.
knowing that they're not going to be able to fulfill that, but they do it in other ways. They're procreating, they're being fruitful and multiplying through the believers. They're multiplying the believers throughout the world by going out and preaching the word
Yeah, yeah,
and preparing the bride of Messiah.
yeah. And let's look at a couple of verses here, that goes with this. Speaking of Paul in Ephesians chapter 5,
Hmm.
starting in verse 27, wait a minute, no, 25 to 31. He says, husbands, love your wife, even as Christ also loved the assembly and gave himself up for it, that he might sanctify it, having cleansed it by the washing of water with the word, that he might present the assembly to himself glorious, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but
Hmm.
that it should be holy and without defect. Even so, husbands also ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is really showing the whole echad, becoming one. The wife is a supporter. The wife, they work together. Guys and women are built differently. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the truth.
Obviously.
You know, and I gotta tell you, I gotta be honest with you. When a woman is like, hey, I wanna present him, I want to present my husband the best way possible,
Hmm.
you know, that husband is gonna go out of the way to give that woman the moon, you
That's right.
know, just like we heard with the Kirks, she did everything to make sure that when he came home, he had a welcoming house, you know. I'm grateful that my wife does a lot of things, that I'm shorthanded in.
Yeah.
She
Absolutely.
covers where I'm short at,
That's
and
right.
I'm so grateful for that. And because of that, it gives me a bigger drive to want to love her as myself, to not just think about me, but to think, okay, how can I elevate our household so that she can have everything that she wants, so that she can be happy too. It's a two-way street. And that's what Paul is talking about here. That's how we both become echad, become one flesh, you
Right.
know?
And then, from a covenantal language, the scriptures are saying, it describes marriage as a covenant, especially in Malachi chapter 2, verse 14, but it aligns with the commitment implied in holding fast and becoming one flesh. He wants us as the bride of Messiah also to be nourishing to our bridegroom, to be spotless, to be faithful to him. And God, he's not through with creation after, Yeshua returns and we have the marriage supper. I think there's a greater plan ahead. And I think Shimini Atzeretz falls into this, which maybe we can talk about when time comes, or I'll be talking about it in a couple of weeks on the Hebraic Living
Mhm.
podcast. I think God is not finished. I think there's a greater future for the sons and daughters of God yet ahead of us, that He is going to continue to procreate Himself
Right.
throughout the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this whole concept of marriage, there is so much metaphors in the scriptures, for example, uh, beyond direct quotes, the Bible frequently uses marriage as a metaphor
Right.
for God's relationship with his people. You know, we know that when everything is said and done, there will be a wedding between Yeshua and his bride, which is us, his people,
Hmm.
you know? And just as what Paul was saying, how the husband takes care. I mean, what did Yeshua say? He said, "Love one another as I have loved you."
Right.
How did he take care of us? How did he show us love? You know, I think that the marriage that we see, even the successful marriages that we see on earth, is going to pale in comparison to the actual wedding.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Well, you say, He gave His life for us, for the bride.
yeah.
You can't go any higher than that, that He sacrificed Himself for us. And we're gonna be reunited with him. That's the great thing, is even Erica has lost Charlie. We talked about this last week, but on this day, Yom Teruah, that's coming up here Monday evening, is easy. That's the resurrection day. It's the day when those who are dead will rise first, and we who are left alive will be changed in a twinkling of an eye. And and we'll always be with Messiah. So we're looking forward to that day of the marriage supper that's coming, I think, very quickly.
Amen. 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 All right, let's look at some Jewish views and see what
Yeah.
the Talmud says on here. From a Jewish view, right? Traditional Jewish interpretations of Genesis 2:24 usually emphasizes the verse as the fundamental blueprint of marriage. All right, it highlights themes of separation from one's family of origin, committed to a spouse, and the formation of a profound unity. The phrase leave his father and his mother is often understood as an emotional and relational shift, where the man was with his family. Now he's going off, to make a family of his own, to have a family of his own with the woman that he finds, that is now some people want to take this as, and I didn't even realize this until I was studying this, that this takes this as, your parents are left behind. But no, you still honor your parents.
Oh yes,
You still honor your parents. But when you have your own family, your wife becomes your priority, your top priority.
right.
And y'all two work together, and you gotta stay as each other's top priorities. I can't tell you how many marriages I've seen that struggled where the husband and the wife put the kids first.
I was just going to say that it's like we have to put, God's the head, then the man, then the woman, but those two are one unit. Then the children. The children are not, they don't have a covenantal relationship with mom and dad. The husband and wife is a covenant, just
Yes.
like the relationship with God is a covenant. And so we have to honor that covenant with each other. But we don't have covenants with our children. They are our offspring.
Yes.
And when they grow up, they will, if they get married, they'll have a covenant with their spouse.
Yeah, and it's sad because people think that that's the best thing to do for the children. But you know what? When a husband and a wife are not honoring each other, even if you don't fight in front of the kids will catch that. Kids catch a lot more than you think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They catch a lot more than you think. And unfortunately, it is what we are not telling them that they're paying close attention to. So it's important that you got to remember that it has to be, because if the husband is taking care of the wife is taking care of the husband, that's going to spill onto the kids, and they will feel that security. They will feel that love.
Right.
Ignoring each other and putting the kids first, that's going to just bring chaos and disunity and discord, and they'll feel that tension too, even if you're not fighting in front of them.
Right. Now, that term one flesh, that bazar echad, is, commonly interpreted as a physical and spiritual union achieved through sexual intimacy, but also through procreation, where the child embodies the merged flesh of the parent. So they become this unity, this one family unit. And like I said, it is symbolized as a covenantal relationship, and it does reflect God's design for companionship. And the family does become that one unit. But inside that one unit, it's the husband and wife that have that covenant relationship first. And the children, they are to raise up and to teach the children, how to live a godly life. They are not allowed to let the children run the family unit, but they are part of the unit. And we need to be able to teach them, and so that when they grow up, they too can pass on to their children God's ways of living and right living. So it's funny, it's one, we're one unit, one family. It's one. It's like there's God is one, echad, God and Yeshua, echad. We with God, we are one with Him. As husband and wife, we are echad. But then as a family, we are like one also. But the husband and the wife is unique in that they have that covenant together.
Exactly. That covenant with each other is the most important thing. And one of the things that kids will take advantage of, and they don't do it on purpose, but this is what disunified couples end up doing, is allowing the kids to pin one parent against the other.
Right. Exactly.
But if you are unified with one another, kids love structure.
They do. Yeah.
And that is the most important structure for them to see, is their mother and father working together, not working against each other.
That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
we'll get into, as time goes on, episodes go on, there'll be a lot of commandments about raising kids, and we can dig deeper into those subjects.
Exactly. Yeah, most definitely. This whole idea of the husband and wife having that covenant with one another, cleaving together, it's also symbolic of our relationship with the Father and Yeshua. Because that's going to be one of the commandments that we cover as we go through this series, is to cling to the Heavenly Father.
Mm-hmm.
To cling to Him. So there's a lot of symbolism in the structure of the husband and wife marriage that really parallels how we are married to the Heavenly Father when we covenant with Him, when we have that covenant relationship with Him.
Right.
Which is something else we're going to definitely go over as we get through these commandments.
Well, I like how Ibn Ezra, one of the commentators, he talks about this, this universal custom of marriage, and then Ramban, he stresses the role about how it overcomes human loneliness and creates shalom, and that shalom means wholeness. So we need to have that wholeness, that shalom in our lives. Each of us, we feel alone when we're not in some type of a relationship. Some people say they like to be alone, but I don't think anyone really likes to be alone.
No.
You want that companionship. You want someone to talk to. You want someone to spend time with.
Most of the time, the people that say that they want to be alone, those are the people, if you dig deep enough, you'll find out that they've been hurt.
Yeah.
That they're holding on to bitterness, from bad relationships and other things. And so they feel like it's better for them to be alone. But deep down inside, none of us are meant to be alone. God designed us to be social creatures.
Yeah, God says, I did not, man was not created to be alone. I'll make him a helper. So that's why He created Eve. So
yeah, and that's why you hear words like Paul uses the body of believers, and he talks about how we all play a part in this one huge body. Not everybody can be the voice. Some people could just be the nail. Some people can just be a bone,
ear,
ephemeral artery, or something in the body. But we are all and just like the body, it's all connected together.
Right.
We are all connected together.
And we all have a role to play. And so we learn through this family covenant, we learn a lot, how to be servant leaders, how to love, and not to be, when you're alone, you can be selfish all you want, right? You get everything you want, do everything you want to do. But when you're in a family, it's different. You have to give, you have to serve.
Yeah.
And so it's like Yeshua serves, and He serves us. He could have the whole world for Himself, but He gave it all for us, for the bride. So
exactly. And the other thing with this whole marriage covenant, this whole marriage command, is we have to look at the structure. You got the man that's the head, and then you got the woman who's the helper. And this is not to say that women can't lead, that women are weaker. No, we all serve a role.
mm-hmm.
And in this society, I'm sorry, but I have seen men that sit back and let the woman drive, and the woman is miserable because because women aren't desired to be driving in that relationship. No matter how much of this equal rights and women power and all that talk. I mean, seriously, I don't know of any woman that really wants to be in control, and will be happy.
But they'll take over if they feel that the husband's not stepping in. That's naturally ingrained in them to fill the void, to bring stability and wholeness, shalom in the family. So they will actually step up.
Yeah, and they'll step up.
Fill that void.
And you know what? I could say from observation and even from past experiences, when a guy has allowed the woman to take charge, and he starts trying to step up and fill his role, that it's going to be hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's going to be hard for him to prove himself. It's not something that just happens overnight. It might take a while for her to let go of that rein and say, okay, I can trust you now. It's not going to be, a lot of guys, and I've seen it happen plenty of times where guys are let the woman drive for so long, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I got to take charge now. And it just causes more clashes, because she wasn't respecting his leadership before. All of a sudden now he expects her to take over, to just let him take control.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. And guys, if you are in that situation, you're going to have to prove yourself. It's going to take time, but you're going to have to prove yourself, because I can tell you right now, women that are in charge of the marriage, they're just as miserable as the husband that's letting them drive.
That's right.
Both are miserable because it's not the proper order. The proper order is the husband is supposed to lead. The husband is supposed to be in charge. And the woman, if the husband is doing it correctly, it's I can't think of a word for it, but when it works perfectly, it's a symbiotic union of perfection.
Yeah. Well, it's time for men. One of the big cultural issues, if we can just get real for a minute, is man, we've been sissified throughout the decades. I mean, since the what do you call it, the feminist movement, and we've neglected our manly roles. We become, we become basically not men anymore. I mean, we have to step up as the priests of our family, the head of our households, take care of our families. The problem is today is that you can't live and survive on a one income anymore. One person income. It used to be, when I was growing up, my dad worked, my mom was the housewife, and maybe she did some part-time work here and there, but she took care of the family. Same with my grandmother. My grandfather worked 2 jobs, and my grandmother, she worked part-time a little bit just to help out, but for the most part, she took care of the family and made sure there was dinner on the table, the house was taken care of. And you talk about being women want to be housewives today. It's like it's like a taboo almost. And it's like, no, women thrive in that environment. And so there's this partnership that needs to be there with the raising of the kids and making sure there's the right environment. And the men should be out there, fulfilling their God-given role. And Yeshua does that. Yeshua gives all to us. Do you think that when Yeshua comes back, that we as the bride of Messiah are going to take over and tell him what to do? And when he see that he's not doing something and we're going to step in and do it? No, he's going to be the servant leader, the high priest of the household of his bride. And we're going to love him. We're going to care for him. We're going to do whatever we can to bring peace and shalom within the family unit.
Yeah. And and here's the thing, we live in a different society now, and a lot of women seem to turn their nose at wanting to be a housewife. And you know what? To a degree, I can understand that, because women have drives too. They have things that they love to do that they want to do. But as a husband, what our job should be, our goal should be to provide. Our goal should be to not settle, because I feel like that's what a lot of guys have done. And I've done it in the past. I've settled with the idea that both of us have to work, but no, I've changed that. Now I want to be the breadwinner. My wife, my wife's from the Philippines, your wife's from the Philippines, my wife wants to work, she loves what she's doing. And so my goal is to make sure that what I bring home can support us, and that her income can be money that we may use to invest, or money for saving up for trips, or just money for her to do what she wants to do, what she enjoys doing.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. You might have, the idea. Now, the idea doesn't necessarily mean that a man has to make more money than the woman, because in today's day and age, it's possible for a woman to be in a more lucrative field than the husband.
That's right. Yeah.
And so there's nothing wrong with that. But as long as the guy's income can still support the both of them, that is the goal. Recently there was an interview, my daughter, listens to hip hop and all of this, and she shared with me this interview of this lady, a performer, where she says that she gives her money to her husband, and her husband is a successful entrepreneur in his own right. He manages the finances. She makes more money than him as a performer, but they are in a situation where if she decides to retire, they're okay. He could still support the family with the income that he brings in.
Yes.
And that is where I feel like most of us have slipped as men, that we've come to this point of accepting that, oh, well, I got to have my wife to work. When no, we should be like, okay, what can I do? How can I increase my income so that, if she wants to work, let her do what she wants to do with the money. Don't put the stress of her having to pay bills. What can I do to get that? And a lot of guys don't think like that anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's the shame.
Yeah, sometimes these households, we get a little upside down in our roles. And I think like what you mentioned earlier, the goal of the man should be to provide, to meet the needs of the family, and to ensure that the best options, that the individual in the family can succeed in life. So sometimes maybe, the dad's a stay-at-home work from home and the wife is going out. If that's the case, then the husband should, have dinner ready when the wife comes home, because she's traveled back, far from work and coming back. So have dinner ready, help clean the house, help do the dishes. There's nothing, unmanly about helping with that. I remember my grandfather, when he kind of retired and my grandmother was still working a little bit, he says he used to ingrain to me all the time, your Grammy works hard, so we're going to help her out. And he would do the vacuuming. He'd do the dishes at night after she cooked some dinner, and he did as much as he could to support her and to allow her to relax when she came home from work.
Yeah, and
that's showing love, right? That's showing love for one another.
That is showing love, and guys, sometimes things can happen. Life can happen where, we lose a job, or, we have to step back to jump forward sometimes, Right.
Get educated
get educated. Exactly.
Change. And it happens. It's happened to me several times now, Yeah. It's happened to you, Mike. I remember. You went through a tough period there for a while.
And you know what? I got to tell you something. Jeff was a life send. It didn't hit me, because Jeff does a lot of like database work and programming. It took me like 5 years after I left her house, but it dawned on me, hey, I could learn programming too. I could do this and make the money that Jeff was making, too. And so I did that. I plugged in, and even to this day, I'm studying Python right now.
There you
You
go.
know, and I'm doing this, but here's the thing. At one point I was like homeless. Stayed at Jeff's house. In fact, if it wasn't for Jeff, I probably wouldn't be married today to the woman that I'm married to, because I was at his house and I was just sobbing and feeling sorry for myself, and Jeff and his wife was like, "Why don't you find yourself a Philippine woman?" I'm like, "What am I going to do with a woman on the other side of the world?"
Yeah.
But I thought about it. And
That's just a season of life that you're going through,
yeah,
and now look at you. The Lord has been good. The Lord just uses circumstances to bring about great blessings later on in life, and He's done it with me. He's done it with you and many others. And it just, if I'm able to be used as a tool in His hand to help, I'm thankful that we were able to help you as much as we could. But you were a blessing to us. I learned a lot from you too. So,
but you want to know what? You know what I realized though in that situation? It was something that I needed, because if it wasn't for that situation, I wouldn't have manned up and like, okay, I need to get better jobs. Because up until that point, I was working, silly jobs. I think the most pay that I made at this time was like $13.50 an hour. Was the most pay that I made. And I'm gonna tell you how God answers prayers, right? And this was at a time when I was going through a divorce. Unfortunately, I wish it didn't have to. And once the divorce was done, I was in a homeless shelter and in Houston, and I remembered just going through the motions. And then I got into a prayer room in this homeless shelter, and I was like, Lord, I'm about to start paying child support for these 3 kids. I do not want to be, I want to be able to support myself. Right. I want to be able to take care of my kids. I never want to fall behind on child support, and be able to have my own place, be able to get a car, help me. And, as I did that prayer, I felt like the Holy Spirit was like,
God was listening.
Yeah, I got you. Within a month, I got a job. And let me tell you how God works. The job that I got, I didn't realize until 6 months later that you required a college degree to get. I don't have a college degree. But it wasn't until 6 months later that I found out that position required a bachelor's degree. And they just saw something in my resume that said, let's interview this guy. And the interview went so well. You know how usually you go on an interview and they're like, okay, we'll give you a call later.
Yeah, no, they never do. Yeah.
Well, these guys at the interview, they're like, you're hired. You're gonna get the job. You're gonna start Monday. And I was like, wow, I'm impressed. And the pay that I was hoping for was way more than what I actually got.
Wow.
And from there, I understood, but I did that prayer also because I was also talking with Joanna at the time, my wife, my current wife. And I was like, you know what? I don't ever want her to deal with poverty.
Yes.
I want to provide, I want to take care. And I've been moving upward ever since.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm so proud of you, man. I mean, you're a testament of faithfulness and God working in your life. And it's been great.
Yeah.
So, we're just here, guys. I mean, people who are listening, we're just here to encourage you. We're just real people like everyone else. And, we have our own struggles and things that we go through. But when we're faithful to God, He's faithful to us in many circumstances. And there's seasons that you go through. So don't be discouraged if you're going through a dry season now. Just realize that you have to be faithful. That's why we started this program, because when you keep the commandments of God, it's just like Deuteronomy 28. We're just reading that in this Torah portion, right? We're ending up the Torah cycle, and he goes through all the blessings. If you keep my commands, these blessings will come upon you. You'll be blessed in the family. You'll be blessed in the field. You'll be blessed here, blessed there, blessed when you come in, blessed when you go out. Blessings will overtake you, overrun you.
Yes.
But then he gives a whole list of cursings that if you are disobedient to me, you're going to be cursed in this, cursed in that. So there are blessings and cursings for keeping God's commands.
And
And that's why we're here to encourage you to man up and woman up and keep the commandments of God, because they will be a blessing and they will bring blessings into your life.
let me tell you something. I could testify to that, because there's been times when I was looking for work, there were jobs that would pay a whole lot more if I worked on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I will not take a job. There were jobs where I had the interview. I knew I got the job, but then I asked them, do I have to work on Saturdays? They said yes. And I was like, sorry, I can't do that. Yeah. And I had to walk away, and they were going to pay me a whole lot of money. But because of the obedience to Torah, because of the obedience to God, he has blessed me with far greater jobs than I ever had before I was Torah observant.
Amen. Well, we got about 30 seconds, Mike.
Yeah.
Wrap it up here in the conclusion. You want to do the conclusion and wrap it up?
Oh, yeah, definitely. All right. Genesis 2:24 is the cornerstone of biblical understanding of marriage, and its principles are etched throughout the entire scriptures. The key supporting passages, you can look up Malachi 2:14-15, marriage as a covenant. Proverbs 5:18-19, Song of Songs, chapter 8, verses 6-2, celebrating marital love. Also look at Matthew 19:4-6. If you are having problems, once again, you can, pray about it, ask questions. If you found any blessings in this, please follow and subscribe. And you can always ask us questions at moderntorah@outlook.com. We will reply. If it's good, we may even bring it up on the next episode. Well, folks, this is it.
Yeah, we got to go.
Yeah, all right. Go.
Shalom, everyone, and Chag Sameach.
Shalom, and Chag Sameach.
If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all other live Lamb Show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell somebody about the Messianic Lamb Network.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.